Hey photographers, I just wanted to let you know real quick that we got our next live Q&A scheduled for July 29th at 6 p.m. Central Time. So if you want to join us, visit shp.photo for all of the details, including how to ask your question, how to actually join the video call and talk to me and my buddy Mark. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you check it out. Hello photographers, my name is Spyros Heniadis and this is where I answer your photography questions and we learn about photography together. And it's Thursday, which means it's Q&A day. Our first question today comes from Xoxo Fabs, who says, why don't people just manually focus? He's wondering if it's too difficult. In my opinion, it is too difficult on modern day DSLRs for two reasons. First, because the optical viewfinders that we have are small, and small viewfinders make it difficult to see the thing you're trying to focus on. So most DSLRs, when you look through the viewfinder, you're not actually seeing a 100% magnification of the scene that you're looking at. Typically, you're seeing something like 0.8x or 0.77 or 0.65. It depends on the camera, but unless you're paying big bucks for a camera like the Canon 1DX, you're getting a small magnification viewfinder that makes it more difficult to manually focus. The other issue is that the focusing screens inside these DSLRs are not designed for manually focusing. Now, if you've ever shot with a film SLR, you're familiar with something called the split image circle. And this was something that allowed you to manually focus and actually see what was in focus. What it is a circle in the center of the frame, and when you turn the focus ring on your SLR camera, the image in the circle is either aligned or misaligned, depending on whether or not it is in or out of focus. So when it's aligned, you knew you had focus on the object you were trying to focus on, and you were looking through a 100% magnification viewfinder. So that's why I personally think it is too difficult to focus on DSLRs. Some people will disagree with me and say that they can manually focus just fine, and that is great. I have never had success trying to manually focus on a DSLR. Now, the other reason we don't manually focus is because autofocus has gotten quite good, and it's included on basically every camera you buy, which means that it is the default focusing method for modern photographers. The good thing about that is autofocus is really great. The bad thing is that autofocus isn't perfect, which means when it fails and you can't use it, you're kind of screwed if you're shooting with a DSLR. Fortunately, we now have mirrorless cameras and live view on our DSLRs with focusing aids like focus peaking that can help us manually focus when autofocus doesn't work and when the optical viewfinder won't do the job for us. Now, our next question comes from Adam, and Adam, I think I'm going to say your last name incorrectly. I think it's Szczurowski. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but Adam has a question that I actually want to put out to you guys in the community because he's wondering which of you photographers out there use multi-pocket vests when you're shooting outdoors, and if you do, what are your recommendations? Now, I don't use one, and I don't know anything about them other than their purpose, of course, which is to give you a whole mess of pockets, so I cannot give a recommendation, but I'm sure a bunch of you out there do, so please leave your recommendations for Adam down in the comments. He says he's always struggling with 2 or 3 pairs of glasses, his wallet, his phone, the filters, and snacks, and whatever else. And the one that he has is cheap with a lot of Velcro that ruins his t-shirts, and the t-shirt ruining drives his wife nuts. So he's looking for something that has good quality at a good, decent price. And our last question this week comes from RickBSO, who says, how do you use a manual flash for just fill light? And this is something that's actually quite easy to do. The thing about flash photography is that you need to think about what you want the picture to look like. But to use a manual flash for fill light, you just need to set the power level of that flash to be a fill light. Typically in a multi-light scene, you have what would be called your main light, which is the light that is principally illuminating your subject, and then your fill light, which is the light that fills in any shadows that the main light isn't lighting up sufficiently for the picture. And in order to use a manual flash as the fill light, all you need to do is A, set the power low enough so that it fills in those shadows without completely obliterating them. And the level of power you'll put that fill light at depends in part on what you want the photo to look like, and in part what the power level of the main light is at. As an example, if you actually are shooting with a flash for your main light, and your main light is at full power, then you might put your fill light at half power if you wanted a 2-to-1 ratio, or at quarter power if you wanted a 4-to-1 ratio. It really depends on what you want the final photo to look like and how much light you want to put into those shadows. Now, the other thing to consider is the position of that fill light. And if you are using your light on camera and that's the only option you have, then you're limited to some degree as to how you can aim the light. But what you can do is hopefully point it at the ceiling or point it at a wall or have somebody hold a reflector to bounce that light back onto your subject's face to fill in the shadows you want to fill in. The key, as I said, is just figuring out how you want that power set in relationship to your main light, whether your main light is a flash or the sun or some lamps in a room or anything else. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's Q&A. That's all I've got for you this week. If you have any questions for me that you want answered, leave them down in the comments. And then do me a huge favor. Would you like this video and subscribe to my channel? If you really like this video, maybe share it with your friends. But the most important thing you need to do is get out there, take some damn photos, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday.